Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. For this tutorial, we will going to we're going to create a simple CodeIgniter login with MySQL stored procedure. Okay, so let's start. So first and foremost, you have to download a CodeIgniter framework here in this URL, https://www.codeigniter.com downloads. You can download either of the two. Okay, but in my case, I have already downloaded mine, and it's located here. mm, CodeIgniter. I have already extracted this one, and all I have to do is to copy the content to my directory folder. Okay, so you also need a PHP server, which it can be a SAMP, WAMP, or any other server that can run PHP. But in my case, I am using AMPs. Okay, so I have to navigate to my created folder a while ago. Okay, I have here demo login. So I have to paste here. I have already assets library for my CSS. Okay, so it's done. So now we need to check if our Apache server is running. So let's try to navigate to our localhost, and the site can't be reached. So take note that if you're going to start your project, and make sure that your server is running, or else you can see anything. So here, Apache running in MySQL. MySQL stops because I have a separate MySQL installed in my um, local computer. Okay, so here it goes. So these are the samples of the projects which I have downloaded over the internet for my references. So let's go now to our project, which is this one, demo login. So here it's our project is already running, but for our tutorial, we need to create a login form. So this is the default page which CodeIgniter provided. So let's start with, I have here. Make sure that the server is running, open the browser, and CA directory. Then first is, we've already downloaded our framework, copy and paste to our root directory, and now we're going to create our database. Okay, so let's navigate to our MySQL, and I have here administrator and demo. I have here the demo database. Okay, actually I've already created my table. It has um five five columns, which the user account ID, username, the password, name, and the status code, which we're going to define if the user is active or not. And then I've already created a two-store procedure, which is the PR user account authentication, which has um two parameters, which is the var username and the var password. Then the other one is the PR user account authentication check, which we were going to use in checking if if the username and the password exist in our database. So same with this third procedure, we have these parameters, the bar username and the bar password, and then the query itself. Okay, so we've already created this one. So now on your project directory, navigate to application config database. So now we're going to configure our framework, the CodeIgniter framework, to accept connection to our database or to make connection to our database server. Okay, so let's navigate now to our um, um, root directory, which is, it is said here in the instructions, application config and database. So application config database. So we will go into look for this one. It is said that we need to change the server host name, server username, the password, and we need to set the database name. Okay, so here I am using 127.0.0.0.1. Okay, but if you have already defined localhost and then it's good, you can just use localhost rather than using that 127.0.0.1. Okay, the username for my database server is administrator, and then the password is, okay, this one. And then the database is demo. Okay, so let's save this one. And then the database driver is MySQLi. So let's just leave this one as that. Okay, go. We are now good at setting up the connection between our project and the database server. Now, next is configure base URL, navigate to application, config, and config. Okay? Okay. Application, config, and then, oh, I'm sorry. It should be application config, and then it should be base URL here. Okay, so here in this base URL we will going to set our base URL, which is the localhost slash demo underscore login. Okay, so every now that we're going to navigate to our URL or base URL, and then we're going, or we will be redirected to this URL. Okay, so just leave it here. Mm, okay, okay, we're already good in that part. Now, set base URLs. For number 10, configure libraries to autoload. Okay, navigate to application, config, and autoload. So it is same directory, and then config, and then the file autoload.php. Here we're going to set our libraries. Okay, we need to autoload the database and the session. We're going to load database because we were going to have a connection between our um, project and the database, and also we were going to load our session libraries because later on we're going to get some data from the database and place it on our session session so that we can still access that one if you already log in. And then the helper, we're going to use that URL is because we're going to use that base URL that we set a while ago. Then set library session, then set model array. Okay, since we haven't created yet a model, so we don't have to place, as of now we will not place anything here inside this array. Okay, so next is create a control named login, home, and logout. So we are already done with our configurations, and then so we will going to create now a file. named login.php, and then next is um, home. We will going to save this one as home.php. This will be the controller for our home. And then next is um, for our logout.php, which will contain all the methods for our logout process. Okay, so we are already done with creating this one. So we need to create a content for that. We're going to create. So I've already created a simple um reference for that. So for our login controller, we will going to copy and paste this one and paste it here. Okay. So login control, we have our controller name login and our class login extend CI, and then the method index, which is the default index of this controller, and then we have the DSP login, which is the view file of our login. Okay, so create for number 12, create also a views named DSP login PHP and DSP home. So in views, we will going to create those two files. So we will name them as dsp underscore login.php, which will later on we will going to put our forms for the login, and we'll going to create another file for our home.php. Okay, that's it. Okay, now set your default route into login from login control into login controller. Okay, navigate to application, config, and routes. So we will go into to config our routes. It's because the default controller route is to welcome. Okay, here welcome. So as you can see, this is the welcome um default controller. Okay, so we need to change this one into login controller. Okay, so we need to change this one into login. Okay, that's good for now. And then close this one. So next steps is start coding your login interface dsp login.php. So now we're going to create our form. So let's copy paste this one. Actually, CodeIgniter, you can just copy paste the um, you can just copy paste the file from the welcome, and then I've just added some few um, CSS and JavaScript libraries such as this one, as you can see on your screen, and then a internal CSS, okay, which you can see on the welcome message that page. I've already copy pasted it here. So now I am going to create this one. Okay, I'm just copy paste. So we have a sample login header, and then a form of class form dash login id underscore login, and the action is here we are going to use the base URL which we've set a while ago, which is the http localhost slash demo underscore login, and then we're going to call this one index.php because it is the default of CodeIgniter, unless you were going to set a rule that we're going to remove this one, and then replace with this controller and method. So we have now a controller login and then a method of login process. And then the method of post. So here we have a username field, contains name and ID, both username, and then input type password, which name is password and the ID is password, and input type submit, value login name, and so on and so forth. So we are done with our um, login uh, login interface. So let's check if it has worked. If we can see some login form, login slash login index. Okay, there it goes. We have now a username and a password and a login button. Now we're going to start coding again to our login controller. Okay, in our login controller, we already have a login process method. Okay, in our login process method, we have two variables and functions, which is the username and the password. Okay, this input post username and password. The purpose of this one is that if the user submit the form, the username, password, this method will going to get the username and the password from those form that's submitted by the user. Now, we have created a new variable which is result check. This MDL login authentication check function and with a parameter of username and password. Now, this MDL is our model. So we're going to create our model, which is mdl underscore login dot php. So that's it. Now we're going to add our we are going to add some code to our login model. Paste and save. So let's go back to the login controller. Okay. So we already have our login model. And by the way, we need to set the config auto load. We need to set the model here, which is mdl underscore login, so that if the user open the program and then automatically this project will going to load this model. Okay, so let's close this one and then let's go back here and then password. So if this line will be executed and then login authentication check will be called, so mdl login check here. So we have two parameters here, username and password. Okay, so mdl login. So here we have a this line we have a stored procedure. We call the stored procedure named pr user underscore account underscore authentication underscore check with two parameters. Okay, and then these parameters are the username and password passed by the controller. Okay, so we've created an array of username and password, put it in data underscore parameter, and then in this line we will going to execute the query. Okay, this db query, then we will going to call the procedure name and then the parameter itself. Okay, so that every time this line will be executed, this parameter will be sent to this stored procedure. Okay, so and then after that, if this line of code returns a number of record which is greater than 0, and then it will return true, or otherwise it is false. So let's go back in this line. So we will going now to check this stored procedure, how it looks like. So let's check our SQL, MySQL. So we have here the PR account authentication check. We have a variable of username and password. So in this query, we will just retrieve the user account ID if both username and password match with this variable username and password. Okay, if the username and password exists, and then simply, and if the username and password exist and still the account or the user account is still active, and then simply return the user account. Otherwise, zero. Okay, so let's return now to our code. So we are done with this, so we will go back to our controller. So MySQLi next results, so we need to close the connection between these lines because CodeIgniter won't allow us to execute two um query at the same time or at the same method. Okay, because I've got a lot of errors trying this one without putting this one, and then so if result check returned one one, it means that if one, it means that the username and password exist. Okay, otherwise if zero and then username and password does not exist. Oh, sorry, exist. So if exists, and then we will going to call this function or other function from our model, which is the login authenticate with the parameter of username and password. Okay, after that, if this line of code returns a value or greater than 1, and then it's true, or there is an existing account which is active, so we're going to get the data of that username, and we will going to store it on this array or session array. Okay, and then we have here the user account ID, user account name, result variable, which is this one, or object, result object, and then user account name, and is login, we will going to set it into true. Okay, and then after that, we place this value into this variable, and then this time we will going to execute this line, which is we will going to set this value into set user data. Okay, session. Okay, that's the purpose why we um set the configuration or to auto load the session. Okay, and then after that, we will going to redirect the user into home slash index. Okay, but if this line of code returns 0, we will going to redirect this to login controller with index method. Okay, so going to erase this one. So anything else? Okay, very good. So we're going to take a look with this method under our MDL login. Okay, so under our MDL login, we have here login authentication, username and password. Again, in this line, we call a stored procedure name PR underscore user underscore account underscore authentication, and then again two parameters, which are the username and the password. Okay, so we have here a variable username and password, put it in array, and then place it to a temporary variable, which is data underscore param, and then execute this line. We will going to execute these two lines or three lines codes here, which is the procedure name and the data param. Okay, and then after that, the same with the start press or the query below. If the query, if this line returns a um, record greater than 0 or equal to 1, and then we're going to loop the result as row, and then we're going to place it here and return the loop value to our controller, and that value will be placed to our session here. Okay, so and then if otherwise this query returns greater than 1 or equal to 0, and then again it is false. So let's take a look with this stored procedure. In this stored procedure, okay, again we have a variable username and password. Okay, so in this query, if username and password exist in our database table and still that the record is active, and then we will going to return the user account ID, the username, and the name of the user, and you set its alias into user account name. Okay, so let's go back with our model. So we are done here, and we are already done here. Okay, so I think we are good to go. Display home. So in our home, we will going to put some block of code for us to know that this is the home. So echo um, welcome concatenation, and then we will going to echo the um, this session user data, and then the user data will be account name. So in this line of code, we will going to display if the login is true, we will going to display the name of the user who logged in our system. Okay, and then later on we will going to add a logout functionality. Okay, logout. So home. So again, we need to create a home. We need to add some block of code to our home. Okay, so let's copy and paste this one. I created this one. So I have here. So again, I have name of home controller, and then here the class is home, and I have here the constructor. Okay, this constructor is we place it is because we want to check if the user is has already logged in or not. If the user is not logged in or false, and then we're going to redirect him or her again to our login controller and index method. Okay, and then after that we created another method which is the index, and we're going to load our view which is the DSP home, and that is this one. Okay, so I think let's try it again. In our database, I've already created a sample user account, which is username is admin, password admin, name John Doe, and status code is active. Okay. Anyway, or if you want, you can set it or you can encrypt this password. But as of now, for this demo purposes, I am not going to encrypt this one. Okay. So let's try logging in. Admin. So error. Call to undefined CI session user data. Okay, session user data. And that line of code is home.php on line 3. Session user data. User data account name and session user account name. So let's check here. Okay, I forgot. There is no underscore if we're going to call user data. So refresh, and then that's it. Welcome John Doe. Okay, so so this time we're going to create the logout. Okay, for sure we already have our login, and then this time we're going to create our logout. So again, I'm going to copy and paste this block of code. So save. Okay. So again, I have a logout controller named logout, and then inside of that controller, I have a class logout. Okay, and then a method of logout underscore process. So under that method, I have a array of user account ID, user account name, and is login. Okay, and then their value are those user data that we've set on the session upon our login, which is the user account ID and username and false. Okay, the purpose of this is that we will going to destroy this set of array or data upon our logout. So in this line, we're going to unset those user data that store in our session. Okay, array items. And then session destroyed, and then after that we're going to redirect our user to our base URL, login controller, and index method. Okay, so save and refresh. So click this logout and oh, nothing's happened. Let's check furthermore. So logout process user account ID false. So I forgot. We haven't um, created a link here. So echo base underscore URL, and then the URL will be this one index.php slash the name of our controller, which is logout, and then the method is logout underscore process. So save, and then again refresh. So try. Okay, we can't go back. It's because all the session that we've created upon our login has already been destroyed. So therefore, let's try again to log in, and then okay, and log out. Okay, that's okay. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy watching this video, and then look out for more videos to come. Again, thank you. Have a good day.